2008, I had a student, Vijay Samvel. Now he is abroad working in eBay. And he was the first one who did GZOG. Actually, I was mentoring him. He was converting C++ code to C. And I was giving a lot of help to him. Today, not today, recently, when I started exploring about, once again, about open source contributions, I understood that I have also done little contribution to open source, because you will understand when I'm going to talk about it. Right, till last week I was thinking, okay, I have not done open source contributions, but I realized during the preparation for the session that yeah, I have also done something little to the open source community, because I was mentoring. Actually, I was his college mentor. He used to discuss a lot of other students. I just know they told that I have contributed, that's all. But that student was actually, he was in interaction. That was the time that GSOC was launched almost. So he was the first student in PhD Tech also who did open source contributions. So it was a great opportunity that I had so much of interaction with him. Right. So let's start discussing about what is meant by open source contribution. So is that term really mean only to software? If you ask, no. It can be either a software or a hardware whose source code or design can be made public for anyone. They can modify it and they can redistribute. So if you see hardware, the terminology is either you can say that as open source electronics or open source hardware. So when you see what is open source, it is the source code, as we saw just in the previous slide, made public to view for anyone to distribute and so on. And who is going to make it? Either a company can do it, or a person can do by himself a small project and he can share the code, or it can be a small business, non-profit organization, or a government agency. And what is open source hardware? You know everything. You might have heard about all the things, but you do not know that this comes under open source software, this comes under open source hardware. Some of you may know that. For some of them, it may be new. So what are open source hardware? Are going to be like machines, devices, or some physical things which has been released to the public. In the design itself will be available. Anyone can make it. They can modify it, distribute it, and use. So one of the popular thing is Arduino. Most of us would have worked with Arduino. So Arduino's hardware is open source, and other things I am not familiar with that, but I just explored and found out. Chamba is there, and then we have got Qubit and Libro Computer Project and so on. So now we will focus only on open source softwares. Examples of open source softwares are Linux operating system and Android by Google, then OpenOffice, Firefox browser, VLC media player, Moodle. We use most of them, isn't it? Clam, Win, antivirus, and then WordPress content management system. So what is the benefits of contributing to open source project, whatever it is? If you say it will help to improve the software you rely on daily. Yes, we use everyday Firefox. Most of the time, I prefer Firefox over to Chrome. Though when I have to log in into VTalk or vPropel, I have to go to Chrome. But I feel very much comfortable with Firefox only, right? So even now I have opened in Firefox only. You can see the logo also. I prefer Firefox only. So you can see, really appreciate, right, how your software is working. What is the technology behind it? You can learn a lot about the software which you are using, and also you can contribute. If you could contribute, it's not an easy thing. If you could understand the code and contribute, that will be a great thing. And you will be having a mentor who is having a wide experience and who can give you a lot of insights about the today's technology. So that mentorship, really, that will be very helpful for you. The students whomever I have known and they have done open source contributions, they have told how it was helpful. It will help you to improve your communication skills also, right? How to interact with people, how to be patient. A lot you will improve when you are going to be a open source contributor. You'll be learning new skills in the sense not only coding skills, you will learn other skills also, and you'll be sharing your skills, and then you will have a much deeper knowledge about the software that we are using, what technology is there, and so on. And also it will build a reputation for you. When you go outside or in an interview, when you tell that I have done an open source contribution, that's a great thing. Even after going to a job also, they do it as a hobby, or because it's a enjoyable thing, right? I have heard that even after people go for job, they do open source contributions. By that day, they will have new opportunities, and if you want to switch, by that way also they take this open source projects as an option. One of my student who just finished his postgrad, he wanted to change the job. In between, he was taking some break and he was exploring. At the time, he was telling me that he's again he was a GSOC contributor. He was telling that again I'm doing open source contribution so that I will know what the current technology is and I can find the best thing which I am interested now, like that. Okay, so open source projects, anytime you can contribute, not only as a student but once you have got a job also, because it gives you a lot of pleasure. And when you see I don't know why when you say what is the open source community, it's like a organization, but it is not a very structured thing as we have an office or something. It is a very loosely organized, and it is an ad hoc community. It's not like there will be a head under whom there will be so many people. It's not like that. It's an ad hoc community of contributors, and if you see the contributors, they will be from different places. They will be in different time zones, and but the point is all will be interested in meeting a common need, right? That's what is a open source community, and every community has its own objectives. They will be different, and different people will be there, and they will be having different roles and rewards and so on. So there is a broad category of members when you look at it. Author, this is the person who created the project, and he will be having the roles, right? He can give new roles to other members, and he will be taking care of coordinating the project maintenance. That's the person who is the author. And owner is the administrative ownership of the project, and he can be the same person as author also. Maintainers are the people who are responsible for driving the vision and goal of the project. So every project will have a goal. So these people, maintainers, will be responsible for making out the vision and goal, and these people will be more responsible for the direction of the project, and they are committed to improving it. So contributors are going to be like people who will contribute to the project. So they will be adding value to the project in one way or the other, and they have to follow code. See, when we are going to contribute, you cannot just put the code inside. There will be a review process that we have to go through. Once your code gets approved, then it will be pushed into the main branch, right? So there will be some kind of review process. These contributors also have to follow the same review process, and they have to subject to the same requirements on code style. See, when you are going to contribute to the open source community, it will be like industry only, where they will be following some coding styles and so on. So every one of them have to follow the same code style, same review process if you are a contributor. And there will be community members or users. Of course, I am a user, right? My operating system is Ubuntu, which is which is developed as an open source project, right? So they are valuable members of the community who will be giving feedback about the features, bug reports, and so on. And when you see the elements of the open source projects, license, this is a very important thing because it's going to protect the contributors and the users. This license will be basically telling how we can use the particular open source code. There will be license, we will be seeing in detail about this. There will be license which is telling that you should only link it, right? They are like pre-compiled libraries. We can link it, but code also will be available. Either you can use the code or you can just link it, right? Linking, maybe one license will tell this is the rule. So licenses will be telling about the rules when we are going to use it, right? That we will discuss next. So license is basically a very important thing which is going to help the contributors as well as the users. So when someone is going to take it for business, do you think it will be used for business? Yes, definitely. Recently I heard that one of the companies using Moodle. Moodle is developed under open source project, and they have plugged in a particular tool, right? But it is not coming under the original Moodle, but that company has customized Moodle. They have integrated a particular tool for, I think it's for analytics, and they have given it as a product in the sense it's like a cloud service. They are having their own cloud, and if you want to use that particular package, you may have to pay and you have to get a login and so on, right? So the business in businesses also you can use the open source products, right? But you should be clear about the license. If you are violating the license, then you may be answerable. So a good knowledge about license is very important. Every project should have a license also, and there should be a readme. As everything has a readme, we can understand. Readme is the manual which will explain how to get started with the project. Okay, and it should have everything like what a contributor. If you want to contribute, what you should know about the project, what it is being, what it is doing, what is the technology behind it, and if you want to contribute, what are the available avenues. Like that, there should be enough information in the README part. And then there should be how to contribute. So this how to contribute is going to give guidelines to people to contribute, show what type of contributions are needed for the project. And there should be a code of conduct. Okay, so that this document is going to establish the expectations of the contributors and the participants, and they should emphasize like this should be adopted, and enforcing a code of conduct will help create a positive environment among the community, right? There should be some policies that all the people in the open source community will follow, so that everything goes as per the expectations of the community. And now we will see about the type of software licenses. One of the type is proprietary. There is nothing to describe about that. You can definitely understand. Proprietary means it's like a license for a particular company, and you have to use it. Means you have to get the consent either by paying them, or there should be some means by which you will be contacting the company. That's what is proprietary license. These are other type of license. One is public domain. This is a very what to say, very flexible type of license. And here you tell that the software you can use it or you can modify it without any restrictions. You can do whatever you want with the particular software. And but you should make sure when you are taking a public domain software, when you are going to make changes and you are going to incorporate into your code base, you should be very careful that it is secured, right? And permissive, this is next type of license, which is also known as Apache style or BST style, and its common variant is MIT license, and it is a very popular license used for free and open source software, and it will be having some minimal requirements about how the software can be modified. First one is very flexible, right? Public domain, where we do not have any restrictions. You can do whatever changes you want. But here there will be some restrictions that will be maintained in the license itself, how you can make the modifications and how you can redistribute it. We have to follow that. That's what is permissive. And the third category of licenses, LGPL, right? Or the full form of this is GNU, Lesser General Public License. It is used to link your open source libraries. This is what I was telling before. Here it allows you to link the open source libraries. They will be pre-compiled code. You can link with your software. If you're just doing a linking, then it's okay. You can do whatever you want with your software, and you can release the software what you have developed as per your wish. There is no restriction on the license. You can define your own ideas, and you can decide your own license, and you can develop your software and release it. That's what is LGPL tells when you just link the open source libraries. But if you are going to take the source code and if you are going to make it part of your code, then you should again use only LGPL. You cannot change the type of license. That's what this particular license does. And next is copyleft type of license, which is also known as reciprocal licenses or restrictive licenses. Okay, example is GPL, which will allow to modify the license code and reuse the distribute the new works based on it, as long as you distribute any work or under the same license, right? You can modify and you can use it, provided you're again going to give the same type of license. That is, for example, if a component of a software is under a particular license, you are going to have a derivative. Derivative in the sense, either you are going to use the same code or you are going to make some modifications in the code, then we will call it as derivative. that particular software also will be using the same license. That's what is copyleft, right? And when you see the open source licenses, there are different types of licenses and they will be approved by open source initiative, right? Also shortly called as OSI. And this is the license. If you want to get that type of license, then you have to go through a review process, which will be done by open source initiative. We have to apply and we have to go through that particular process. And these are all the popular OSA approved licenses. Apache license, BSD, under that we have got some categories. GNU, GNU is also called as GNU General Public License. That is the full form of GPL, Lgpl we saw, MIT, Mozilla Public License, and then we have got Common Development and Distribute License, Eclipse Public License version 2, and so on. Okay. So this is just an introduction about what is the open source community and what are the elements of open source. Now let us come to the core part, how you can contribute, what you can contribute. So the question, very important question is it mandated to write code to contribute to open source software, right? No, not at all, not necessarily. You need not write code base to contribute to open source software. Even GSOC is the most popular open source projects that is going on with incentives, right? Even there are projects where you can do without coding. Okay, instead of coding, what you can do is there are many things that you can do. Let us add a description to the project documentation. You can add value to the documentation. You can elaborate on a point, or you can provide a guidance on a specific project, right? You may be like a guide. That's what I told in the beginning. And you can provide some example to show how the code works, right? When they are developing, all of you must know that comments are very important, isn't it? If you forget to comment to your code, you yourself will not even understand. It's not only for open source. Just think of your data structures lab or your operating system lab. If you're writing a bigger code, if you forget to comment it, it's very difficult to understand what you're doing, even after a month or so, isn't it? So everywhere, all the software will be with documentations, there will be comments, but the comments and documentation may not be very elaborate, because then during development, people will be concentrating on the code base and correctness, testing, everything, right? They might have done documentation, but not in a detailed way. So what you can do is you can add examples to show how the code works. And you can write tutorials for the project, and you can do a translation for a project, and you can answer questions about the project in Stack Overflow or Reddit. And also you can be a mentor to another contributor. Sometimes you may even fix typos and arrange projects folders in a proper way, or you can make YouTube videos about the product and how to use the product. And research is showing that about 30% of the contributions or documentations, typo fixes, or even translations. So we can start even with the documentation. If you have hesitations to contribute to the code base, to start with, you can, it will not be still easy, but you can start with doing documentations or something, so that you'll get familiarized with the other stuff like how to do communication, how to interact with people. Then you can start doing code base contributions also. So when you see the environment for OSS, so where people can share their challenges and have in-depth discussions. That's what is the environment I'm telling about. And there are like issue trackers, right? So people will be discussing about what are the issues related to the projects, whether there are bugs, what type of bug, and so on. And there will be pull request. So you can see what the change is going on, what change is being done in the project. By looking at the pull request, you can understand. And there are synchronous chat channels where people in the same community will be sharing their ideas. They will be having conversations like you have got Slack or Discord or IRC, that is Internet Relay Chat. So these are all the things. IRC is most popular as far as I know. And you have to set up it, and you have to have a good chat so that you will understand how the project is going on. And one thing that we should know is the world of open source software is very prompt, and once the issue gets reported, it will be fixed very fast. It will be fixed very quickly. So if you want to address an issue, or if you want to fix the issue, you should be trying to work very promptly to do that. Otherwise, someone else may fix and go. And these are all some of the links that are there to share. Okay, I just took it from internet only. I can also share this. So these are all some of the link where you can go and see what are the type of open source projects, and you can just try to find out which will be suiting you and so on. So how to select a open source software project, right? So first thing you have to check is whether it has a license file. That's very important, right? And when was the last commit done? Whether it is currently active or not. You can understand from the last comment and how many contributions does it totally have and how open people do make commits, right? From this, you can understand the activity of the entire community. If it is good, if it is having a lot of people, lot of commits or their recent commit is there, then you can decide, okay, it's an active project again, and you can select it. You can select it based on your interest, right? So further, if you want to know, further if you want to design, okay, you have chosen this project, I can try. And how to take the issue, because there will be plenty of issues that you may work on. Okay, there are plenty of avenues where you can proceed. So first thing is how many open issues are there. You have to look into that, and how long people take maintenance. We saw the different category of people. The maintainers are responsible for the projects progress, isn't it? Achieving the vision, mission, everything. So whether the maintainers are responding and they are, whether they are prompt or not, whether there is an active discussion on the issue, whether issues are getting closed regularly, and how many pull requests are there. These things you can see, and you can also see about latest pull request merged recently or not, and how you can get reviewed first, right? These are the things that you may have to concentrate next to look at the issue, right? And once you have chosen this, one more thing that we have to concentrate is the programming language in which you are comfortable, right? Either you can be comfortable with web languages like JavaScript, Node.js, and so on, or C++. Those languages also you may be comfortable. So most of the fundamental technology that is active are JavaScript, Python, Java, Ruby, PHP. These are all some of the things, and you can check your interest, whether you have a deep knowledge or you want to. You may not even have a deep knowledge when you start, but whether you have the interest to do C++ coding. Everyone have their one interest, isn't it? Which one you enjoy the most? You can choose that particular language. There are options also to filter based on the language in which you are interested. You can go even to the GSOC site. You can see the total contributors. There will be thousands of open source projects that are available. Now you can go and choose your piece of cake by looking into that list also. And what are the type of projects if you want to categorize operating system, right? I had a student, he told me that he contributed to Linux a lot, right? He was you can write device drivers, right? That will be very interesting. Everyone cannot write a device driver, right? If you write a device driver, then you will have a lot of in-depth knowledge about the system. You will be a real engineer, right? Also, you can try that. There are, as we know, operating systems, Ubuntu, Arch Linux, Fedora, everything is open source. Linux, Mint, Debian, OpenSUSE, and Android, as you know, it's an initiative by Google and it's a mobile OS. React OS is there. These are all the different open source projects which are working on operating systems and web servers. When you see web servers, we have got Apache HTTP server, Nginx is there, okay, and Node.js, Apache Tomcat. These are all the different web server projects which is under open source license. And database systems, MySQL, PostgreSQL. MySQL is recently taken by Oracle. Okay, PostgreSQL is still the open source thing. MariaDB is a fork of MySQL, almost the same thing as MySQL, but still open source. Apache Hive is there. Hive is for big data. When you are going to use Hadoop, you'll be relying on Hive and so on. SQLite is a very light database. And mobile data frameworks, if you think, if you look at, you have Ionic, React Native, and Flutter. These are all different. See, everywhere we have open source tools. For QA, quality assurance automation tools, we have got Selenium, Flutter, Robot Framework, Big Data Analytics, Hadoop. Hadoop was very popular, right? Nowadays, we have got Spark. If you want to do distributed computing, then we will rely only on these tools, right? These are all open source projects which helps us a lot, right? They are frameworks. So the framework is developed as a open source thing. And then we have got Office. You might have heard or used Open Office is there, LibreOffice is there, NeoOffice, right? For content management, we have got WordPress, ERP tools. ERP means entire enterprise will be managed, right? If you look at our university, there are ERPs, right? For everywhere, for account section, what is ERPs? For every section of the company, you'll be having a software managed components, right? That's what is the ERP. So that's a very big thing. Okay, every sector we have to address. There are many open source tools for that also. And yeah, so this is about just an introduction. And these are the tips given by a OSS contributor. He was with Procti, a 2017 batch, Rajagopalan. I had interaction with him so that I can give some real-time experience. Most of the things what he told was also in the previous slides, right? I just clapped it. He told that he did GSOC as a contributor. He did, and I think in second year he did, and in finally he was a mentor for some students who were doing GSOC. Right? He grew to that level. He is a very good student, and he is a very skilled person. Right? I can tell a lot about him. I got some input from him. Right? What I should tell here. Right? He told that it's not easy. First time it will be very difficult to understand and get into it, but definitely you will enjoy it once you enter it, and a lot of experience and exposure you will get. So he told you should be consistent and you should not lose patience. You should feel free and confident. One thing he was telling was they must be very interactive in the community. First thing that you should set up itself is, if you are going to be a open source contributor and if you have chosen a project, then first of all you have to set up the communication, what type of tool they are using, what type of setup they have got. You have to make the same thing for yourself also, right? And you should not feel hesitate. You can even ask where I should start. I want to contribute, where I should start. You should not feel okay, this is a silly question, how can I ask. He was telling that you should feel very confident to post your doubts in the community, right? You can ask any question without any hesitance. Hesitance, don't tell like this is a silly question or something. You must be very confident. That was his point. And he was also telling that when we are asking the questions in the open source community, we should put the questions in the common, right? You should not directly ping, you should not specify a person. Instead, tell what is your doubt or what is your concern about the thing. Anyone, someone will reply you, because people will be in different timeline. As we saw in the beginning, people are from different point of the world and they will be in different timeline. Someone will answer you. So it's not a good practice to ask a particular person. Instead, you must post your question in common in the communication channel. And you should also have a professional way of addressing using the first name, right? No sir, no ma'am, it's not a college or anywhere. So you should use their first name to address to people, that they will really like it. And if we are having some kind of non-formal things, that may not be nice. That's what he told. And if you are new, and if you are open to take anything, anything you want to explore, any language, means he suggested to go with Go. Go is that, I think every one of you may know it. Go is a language by Google, and nowadays Go is becoming very popular, he told. And he was also telling about Rust. Okay, Rust is another one language which is getting popular, and many open source projects are available based on these languages, right? And these are some of the references which I used in addition to the chat which I had with other people and my experience. You can refer this also. Yeah, that's all. So any queries?
Guys, if you have any doubt, you can ask it. Okay, then we'll go ahead with our next session, next section. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks Payesh for the opportunity. Yeah.
Pranav, now you can go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. So right now, we're gonna have a look at an introduction to GitHub, right? So first, let's have a look at what we're gonna try to cover. So we're gonna be having a look at the need for GitHub, what GitHub is, getting started with GitHub, creating repositories in GitHub, creating branches, making commits, and opening and merging pull requests. And we'll also be seeing how to raise issues. So why exactly do we need GitHub in the first place? So developers need a web or cloud-based code hosting platform, and GitHub is extremely useful for version control. And another really important part of open source is collaboration, and GitHub makes that very simple. It also provides an easy way to download projects in a single go, so you don't have to download multiple files and stuff. And it's also easier to evaluate other people's work. So why exactly is GitHub more popular than other alternatives like GitLab, and the other ones like Bitbucket? So first off, GitHub has an extremely powerful community, and it's also backed by really big companies like Microsoft and IBM. And it's also the largest shared repository in the world. And again, version control on GitHub is extremely useful. And GitHub also provides secure cloud storage. So small companies, small projects, they don't have to worry about security for those at the moment. Yeah, so now let's have a look at exactly how GitHub looks like. So for GitHub, you can go to www.github.com and actually log in. It's in the chat box. So after you log in, this is most likely the first page you're going to see. So over here on the site, so this is basically the notification. So whenever you start contributing in repositories, you tend to get notifications, and you will get those notifications over here. So you can see what issues you were assigned, where you're participating, if you were mentioned anywhere, where your team was mentioned, and if a code review was requested, you'll see them all over here. Now, if you go to the top over here, you'll be able to see 4 tabs. The pull request tabs is a pretty important tab. So over here, you'll be able to see what pull request you've made, where you've been assigned pull request, where you've been mentioned in pull request, and request reviews. We'll be going deeper into pull requests later. Issues is also, so the issues tab leads you to a bunch of issues. So where you've opened issues, so on and so forth, and where you've been assigned issues, and where you've been mentioned in issues. We won't be looking at the marketplace as of now. And the Explore tab is actually extremely important because it gives you an overall view of what's happening in the community at the moment. So after it loads, yeah. So right now you can see anything that you see over here will be based off the repositories and the interests that you have. So this makes it easy for you to find a repository where you want to actually contribute. And on the right, you'll be able to see repositories that at the moment are trending. So you can have a look at what's going on, what people like at the moment. And you can also see trending developers. So an easy way to look at GitHub is kind of like a mixture of Instagram and Google Drive, where basically you try to connect with people and you also upload stuff. And in this case, it's mostly code. So again, if you go to the top 3 buttons over here on the top right corner, this is the notifications tab. So you'll be taken back to the initial screen that we just saw. The plus over here leads to this dropdown. So you can see you have a bunch of buttons over here. So like you can create a new repository, import repositories, create a new gist, create a new organization, and create a new project. So what a new repository is, so the difference between a new repository and a project is, a repository is, when you use repositories, they are directly related, it directly uses Git. So there's a significant difference between Git and GitHub. So Git is the actual functionality, whereas GitHub is more of a service that uses Git. So when you create a new repository, which is basically like a folder in G Drive where you can upload stuff, that's basically what a repository is. A project, on the other hand, rests directly on the actual service. So right, and over here, if you created it for the first time, this is you'd see a pixelated icon, but this is basically going to lead to your profile. So over here, if you click on your profile, it's going to lead you to your personal profile, kind of like your personal profile on Instagram. So after it loads, yeah. So basically, why you need a personal profile is it's to just give you more information about yourself, because you're going to be collaborating with people who you most probably do not know, and at that it'll be easier for the people to work with you if they know exactly what you can do. So you try to make it as attractive as possible. So you can add to your README, you can add stuff like the technology you can use, where you're active on blogging, where you can connect with people, so on and so forth. And so you can also add links. You can add your Twitter accounts, where you are, what you're doing at the moment, what organizations you're a part of, and so it's basically a large description of who you are and what you're doing at the moment. So next, if you go to repositories, which is a very important thing. So if you click on this tab, you'll be led to a list of repositories that you are a part of. So that you are a part of, that you've forked, that you've created. So you can choose to sort these by the type, where if they're public, private, where they've come from, if they're forked, if they're archived, or mirrors. You can sort them according to languages, and you can also choose to sort them according to the name and the number of stars. So we'll be going over all of these later. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to create our first repository. So if I click on the new tab, it's going to be redirecting us to another tab where we will be creating our first repository. Yeah. So as you can see, this is the page where you create your first repository. You create your repository. So you can give it any name you want. It has to be unique per person. So for now, I'm just going to use the one that they've given over here to keep it unique. And you can add a description of your repository. It's not necessary to do it at this moment, but if you want to, you can. So for now, I'm just going to say Hackoween. And then you can choose, and then you have the actual visibility behind your repository. It can either be public or private. So the only difference between public and private is, in both cases, you get to choose who gets to commit code to who gets to add code, who gets to modify stuff on your repository. But the difference between both of these are, in public, anyone can view your files and code, but in private, only certain people can choose. You get to choose who accesses your repository. So for now, we're going to leave this at public. And then these three buttons are, you can either choose to add a README file, add a git ignore file, or choose a license. As ma'am explained, a README file gives added descriptions of what your repository or your project actually does. So we're going to add that now. A git ignore file is used to choose which files you don't really want to track at the moment. We're not going to be looking into this at the moment. And you also get to choose a license. So as ma'am said, licenses are really important, and GitHub gives you a large amount of licenses you get to choose from. So for now, we're going to be choosing the MIT license. And also, when you're doing this, you also set the default branch is the main branch. We'll be looking over this in the next section where we'll be doing branches. So I'm going to be creating the repository. So as simple as that, we've just created our first repository. So right now you can see a bunch of tabs at the top. You can see issues, pull requests, actions, projects, security, insights, settings, etc. So at the moment, first let's go over this. So basically at the moment, we have two files. We have the README file, in which we added the description, for which I added Hackoween, and we have the license. So we have two files over here at the moment. In the issues tab, you get to see what issues were raised in your repository. You also can see what pull requests were made to your repository. And we won't be going over these tabs at the moment, but in Insights, you get to see what exactly is going on. Like, what's the, so how many, what people have contributed, how your community is doing. So if you added everything, it becomes more easy for people to work with it. How many people have been viewing it, viewing your repository, people who've committed, what the code frequency is, so on and so forth. And if you go to settings over here, you get to play around with the different settings. And another thing that people use GitHub for, especially students, what they do is using something called GitHub Pages, you can choose to deploy a static website, any static website. So it becomes pretty useful for that. You can, so I won't be going into how to do that at the moment. So we're going to be going back to code. So now we're going to be talking about branches. So for branches, I'll be going back to my PPT. Yeah. So now that we're on, so let's have a look at branches. So what branches do are they allow you to develop features, fix bugs, and experiment with new ideas in a contained area of a repository. And each repository provides one default branch, and in our case, it's the main branch, and you can have multiple other branches. So basically, what it means is when code usually works, you don't really want to mess with it. But if you want to add a new feature, like say a new section on your website for contacting someone, for contact me site section, creating a branch and then working with it will protect your own repository from like in case something went wrong, you can always revert back to the previous working branch. So pictorially speaking, this is what branching looks like. So by default, you have a main or master branch. And if you want, you can create a branch in which you have, or in which at that, when you create a branch, all the files that were present in the main or master branch at that moment will be transferred to to the branch you just created, and you can work with it. So any changes that you make will not affect the main working branch. And when you're satisfied with your code and you're sure that it's actually working, you can choose to make a pull request to merge it back with the main or master branch. So at the moment, this might seem a little confusing. So, but we're going to have a look at it. It's actually really simple to work with. So for that, what you have to do is at the moment, we have only one branch over here. So we only have one main branch. So to create a new branch, all you have to do is click on this drop-down menu over here, and you can choose to create a new branch. So for that, I'm going to be saying branch one, and I'm going to create a new branch, number one, from main. So when we do that, we have like, so now we've successfully created a branch, right? And now that we've successfully created a branch, at the moment, all the files that we have in the branch one are the same files that we have in the main branch. But now let's say I want to add a new feature. So I'm going to try adding a new file, right? So to add a new file, you can either choose to upload files from your local computer, or you can just directly create a new file. So I'm going to just create a new file, a simple file. Yeah. So now this is how basically you can create a new file. So I'm going to add a new file inside a separate folder. So to create a folder, all you have to do is give it a name. So I'm just going to say, call it folder one. And then if you add a new forward slash, whatever file you add will go into folder one. So I'm just going to say intro.md. .mb is basically the extension for a markdown file. So I'm going to just add Hackoween. And now you can choose to preview what changes you made to that file. So now I've added Hackoween. So now you can choose to commit a new file. So basically what committing a new file or committing changes means is you're sure about the changes you're going to be making to the file. And you can also choose to add an extended description. It is it is extremely good practice to add descriptions because it'll let the other people who are working on the project understand what changes you've made. But at the moment, I'm not going to be adding any comments. And we're going to be leaving it on the first one. So we're directly merging it with branch one. I'm going to be committing a new file. So now, if we go and have a look at what's going on. So we have a new folder, right? And inside the folder, we have our file. So now the thing is, if we go and look at what happened in the main branch, you'll see that we do not have that folder over here. It exists only in branch one, right? So now let's say that whatever folder I added over here is the feature that I wanted to add, right? And now I'm satisfied with whatever changes I've made. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called creating a pull request. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on compare and pull request. Yeah. So now I'm going to be creating a pull request. So again, you can choose to add a extended. You can leave a comment on why you want to merge and stuff. But for now, I'm going to just leave it blank. And as you can see, we are able to merge with the main branch. So I'm going to be creating a pull request. So because at the moment I am the owner of the repository, I will be able to merge the pull request myself. And if you are not the owner of the repository, say you're making a pull request to a friend's repository or someone else's project, you're going to have to wait for them to merge your pull request and they'll only do it if they're interested or they like what changes you've made. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge the pull request and I'm going to confirm the fact that I want to merge the pull request. So now it says that we have merged the pull request. So I'm going to go back to the code over here. And right now we're on the main branch. And as you can see, now we have a new folder over here. And initially this was only on the branch one, but now it has been merged with our folder main branch. So finally, what we're going to be looking into is something called issues. So what issues are is, say you have a project or say you have a website and you have a small problem. Say you have a button that needs to be centered or a div that needs to be centered. Either don't have the time or you do not have the abilities to fix that issue. So during that time, what you can do is you can do something called create an issue. Now, when you create an issue, what you can when you create an issue, all you have to create an issue, all you have to do is click on the new issue button over here. And then you have to give it a title. So for now, I'm just gonna say pull request one. Usually, typically speaking, the title should and the description should give a complete, detailed description of what problems you're facing and how you exactly want them to be fixed. You can choose to add labels to your thing, so you can say that I need it, it's a bug and I need it to be enhanced, and it's good for people who are good for first time pull request people. So you can choose to submit the new issue. So after it loads, you'll see that there's a new issue created in the issues tab. So basically, because the repository is public, basically anyone can choose, ask to have it assigned to them so they can try fixing it. So as you can see, we now have a new pull request. So finally, we're going to be going over these three buttons over here. So basically, this is called the watch button. So what this means is when you are watching a repository, anything you can either choose to have only at mentions, all activity, ignore a custom. So basically what this does is it notifies you every time something happens to the repository, and you can choose what kind of notifications based on what functions you're going to get. What start in repository means that it's basically kind of like saving a post on Instagram. But when you start it, it gets added to something called stars in your repository. So it makes it easier to come back and look for the repository. And you can do something called forking a repository. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going to my friend Priyash's repositories, and I'm going to be forking a repository. So what forking means is it basically means you're going to make a copy of all the files under your repository list. So any changes that you make on the copy that's in your repository list will not be affected, will not affect the code, will not affect will not affect the person you forked it from. And if you want, and you can choose to make a pull request to contribute to his repository. So after this finishes loading, we'll be going over to Priyash's repository. So I'm going to be going to Priyash Yadav. Yeah, so this is Priyash's repository. We're going to be forking a repository. So I'm going to be going to his repositories, and I'm going to be going over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the fork repository button. So I'm going to choose to fork it to my repository list. And now, as you can see, I have a copy of whatever repository had under my name. So right now what it's doing is it's copying all the files, and very shortly I'll have the exact copy of whatever he has. So that's all about an introduction to GitHub. Thank you for your time.
So yeah, so now I'll be going over what basically you guys are here for, what Hacktoberfest is and everything. So in short, like let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Nihal Srivastava and I'm a second year student in VIT Chennai with specialization in AI and ML. So yeah, let me share my screen and I'll show you guys the website. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. So basically Hacktoberfest is like a month-long event, which is something more like a celebration, I would say, for the open source community, which is hosted by the DigitalOcean. So if you guys don't know about DigitalOcean, I would suggest you guys to check their website out. It's like a hosting platform where you can go and, example, you made a Python project and, you want to, host it so that everyone can use it. You can go and host it over there and, do a proper deployment. And this Hacktoberfest had, started out in around 2014. So during this month, you should try your best to contribute back to the community in various possible open source projects that are available and which you might feel interested in so that you can contribute over there. So to explain this better, I might give you a small example. You're very good at front end, you're skilled in that area, and there is some other dude who's working on an ML model, for example, and he wants to deploy that ML model as a web app. Now that person may be very good in the front end model and the back end area, but he may need your help in the front end aspect. So you might come over to GitHub and raise an issue saying that he needs someone to make a landing page for him based on his requirements. As you had seen previously, Pranav raising an issue, he might do it similarly. And then when you're scrolling through GitHub, you might end up landing on his page, seeing that okay, he needs a landing page, and you feel that you can complete that part. You take up it as a challenge, complete it, and push your code to him. So finally, in the end, basically both of you have contributed together to make a web app. And this can be used by any person on the internet who thinks can start out from where you guys left out. And that's how the community grows. So you might have also faced like a lot of bugs, errors when you have been coding all this long. And you come back to this community each time you feel something. Not only GitHub, but you might have gone to other places too, like Stack Overflow, for example, which is also a very good place to where people help you out with your bugs. So I feel like this is one of the main reasons why Hacktoberfest have started, and that you should contribute back to your society. Also, one more pro thing: if you complete the Hacktoberfest, you get a T-shirt, which is always good. So the criteria to get qualified for Hacktoberfest is that you need to complete 4 successful pull requests. That is, for it to be successful, you need to open a pull request up, and then it has to be accepted by who is hosting it, and he should give it a tag of Hacktoberfest accepted. Once this is done, you can see it in your profile that it has been accepted. So for you, I suggest you guys to come over to the Hacktoberfest page here and click on the start hacking button. So in the start, it will ask you out for like a setup about your profile, which you can fill up and log in as a participator. Once you have done that, initially it will be 0 0 for you, but once you make a pull request, it will come here in progress session, that is saying that you have one pull request open, and you can see over here the pull request I have opened so far. And once it has been accepted, and there's a 14-day wait period where the Hacktoberfest people verify your contribution is valid or no, and once that's completed, it will go over to the total completed section. And you guys can also check the website out. You have like various resources available. Even if you're like a beginner or something, it tells you the things you can start out with. And also, you can go to the FAQ section if you have any more doubts. Most of them have been clarified by them over here. So where do we come into the picture? Like, you may be thinking like, this is very intriguing, how do I start out? You can go over to the Hackoween Hacktoberfest page we have made on GitHub, and this is the page we have made like a week ago for you guys to use. So probably the link is there in the chat box right now. So a brief about the page what we have made. uh, we have basically split up this into various sections. Like, you can contribute in a DSA project or various other projects that are open up. And we have chosen DSA because a lot of you guys actually may be studying the subject and may feel very convenient to open and put your code over here, since you may already have the code. So what you can do is first come over here and fork the repository. Once it is forked, you can open it locally and go to whichever section you want to contribute. Example, you have a data structure like stack, which is written in C++ language. You can come over here, go to the C++ section, go to data structures, and you can upload your code over here. Once that is done, you can open a pull request, and then we will surely review and then accept it. We have put you can basically go through the rules over here. We have put very basic rules for you guys. One is that there should be no spamming, like, don't just give empty pull requests and assume that we will accept them. And next, you should have proper comments written in your code. And if it is a data structure algorithm, make sure to put in the time and space complexity, since that's how the code is going to be useful for anybody who wants to use it. And put it in the proper file directory. For example, if you want to make an HTML, if you want to upload a HTML file, come over to the projects, go to the HTML section, and put in the appropriate folder. And not only these folders, if you have, example, you're a React developer and you want to upload a React project, feel free, come over here, make a new folder called React and put in it. We will surely review your code and accept it. And that is basically it. We also keep opening issues over here. So you can see, come over here, I think we had opened 2 issues so far, and they have already been fixed by other people. So yeah, this was basically the short event we planned. And if you have any doubts, we're gonna stay here for a while, and you can ask us. You can unmute and ask right now, or you can hope you all are there in the Discord server too, and you can go in the doubt section over there and ask your queries, and we'll surely respond. We'll be sending you a feedback link right now. Please fill that, and based on those, we'll be sending your certificates out too. So yeah, remember to fill those. Thank you.
So guys, if you have any doubts, you can ask it in the chat box. I'm opening it for everyone. And I'm also sending the link of the form over here. Okay, already there. So you can fill it, and if you have any doubt, you can stay here. We hope you like the event.
That went very well.